morning and welcome to day 6 of the Arizona Trail 800 Mile Showdown recap. I'm your host, Jamil Curry, here with Bryce Brooks.
Good morning.
We are back in studio having a blast. I love the consistency of this show. It's really helping me out in my life. We are checking in with Michael McKnight today. He is over 300 miles now into his Arizona Trail experience. Specifically, if you click on his name right there, we can give you the exact mileage.
332.
Mile 332 after 6 days here. And he is right near Roosevelt Lake. So good morning to all of you tuning in. We appreciate the enthusiasm and following this epic journey across the state of Arizona. So Mike, yesterday and through the night, passed through the Superstition Wilderness. This is one of the 3 big wilderness zones that he's crossing through in central Arizona. He's actually north of us now. So if you go laterally across, he is kind of moving up past the Phoenix area, kind of almost above Metro Phoenix now, and really making some amazing time across this state. So looking ahead to today, we've got Four Peaks Wilderness and then the Matazal Wilderness, which is arguably maybe the most feared section of the trail. I know for me it was my slowest on the entire trail. So Bryce, any thoughts before we head into the field? I know that we have Ben Light on the line with Mike, who's in the van still, and then we've also got a special guest, Jeff Garmeyer, legend, joining us.
So just a quick preview of what he's got coming up here. So right now, mile 331, elevation 2,500. So he's going to be doing about 2,000 feet and not too many miles. And then his next crew checkpoint is going to be at mile 371, which makes it about a little less than a 40-mile.
No, I think they can get up into Four Peaks, right?
Oh, you're right.
There is a section, I think, up near somewhere up near the top. It is quite the drive up there, but it's definitely possible, and I'm sure they're going to go. So there should be at least one spot to break it up there in the middle. But
cool. Should we send it over to Ben, see how they're doing
check
out there?
in. Good morning, Ben.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Can you give us an update?
Yeah, so yesterday was pretty exciting, eventful day. Obviously, going through the superstitions. Just to kind of give everybody a transparent update. Mike started climbing up into the superstitions, and I think it was a little bit more warm than we were predicting. Obviously, the weather was saying cooler, and I'm sure it is cooler than it could be, a few weeks later, but it was definitely warm for what we've been faced with the last few days, and took a toll on him physically with electrolytes and hydration. He is carrying over like 4 liters and started burning through that real fast, and then had to go down to rationing it as he, before he could near the top. So that kind of put him in a well. We were able to get up to Rogers Trough. He came in. We got him food, I guess you can say, and let him lay down. He was in a really cold spot where he couldn't get his body temperature up after being so hot on the exposure. And so right when he got up there, the sun pretty much went behind the mountain to a point where it really cooled down with a breeze. And so he started shivering pretty good. So we got him into 2 sleeping bags, loaded him into the back of the truck and onto the bed, let him take a 30-minute nap, and then started rehydrating him with BCAAs and electrolytes. And so after that, he started to come alive and headed out last night. And then last night became another eventful night through the superstitions. We're still diagnosing what kind of took place, but he came in with a really swollen knee and really painful, and he made slower progress. We thought he'd be coming in around 3. he ended up getting here closer to 6, which is a huge toll on the sleep schedule. And so he was able to get a few hours of sleep, a lot less than we would like, but he's up now. So with that swollen knee, what we kind of think what might have been the culprit, and this is just just troubleshooting in a way, is he got so behind on his electrolytes that we swung that pendulum, filling him up with some electrolytes to get his mental state back, as if anybody's been like on the verge of heat exhaustion and dehydration. It's an overwhelming, consuming feeling. But once you get electrolytes back in you, that mental state can really have some relief, and you can feel the energies come up. But if you swing the pendulum too far, then you start to get over electrolyted and you start to swell. And I think maybe with the cooling temperatures, a boost of electrolytes, he kind of took on some fluids. And when he left with compression socks on up to his knees, or up to at the top of his calves, to kind of combat some. We're trying to cover up some sunburn that he has, gotten on his back of his calves, because I guess you can say in the wintertime, the sun is basically at a southern east to west. And if he's heading north majority of the time, it's hitting the back of his back the majority of the time. So the back of his legs, the back of his neck, the back of his arms are all kind of sunburnt in parts from the sun. So we were trying to cover that up. But with that compression and with a little bit of swelling that we didn't know was going to happen, it held the swelling up by his knee. And with that fluid in that mechanical area, it starts to cause a lot of pressure and irritation. And so when he came in, he said his knee was clicking. It was in some good pain. And so we loaded him up into the RV to sleep. We got his feet elevated. We put the compression boots on for about an hour. When he woke up this morning, just a bit ago, his knees look a ton better. So that's a huge, a great thing that the swelling has gone down that much. He has the hip attachments on right now, because we know that he's having some glute firing issues and some hip that might be also causing some of that tightness in the quad, on the inside quad. So we're trying to alleviate some of that now. After he eats breakfast, we're going to start icing his knee to try to get even more internal inflammation out. We'll do like a 20-minute cycle on some ice, and then do some hip activation, glute activation, some stretches, mobility stuff outside the van, and then hopefully get him to go. And just like Jamil said, we'll be able to get to him at the top of Four Peaks. We'll take the road up there. It'll cut that in half so that we can get him on the top half, and before he starts to descend down to the Sunflower AZ 87 area, where hopefully, it'd only be a 40-mile day today, but because of these last 3 nights of going through the night and finishing at 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., he's definitely behind on sleep. And so we're hoping before going into those Matzels and to that extreme condition that we can get him a good night's rest so that he can not lose the extra time in the Matzels. So, this is for the viewers that have never been a part of anything long like this. This is the fun stuff. This is, the troubleshooting, problem solving, pivoting, plan B, C, down to E and F, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Well, this is kind of indicative of ultra running in period. Like, it's the highs, the lows, the extreme lows. And this doesn't mean that this thing's over by any means. No. It means that, like you said, you have to figure out what's going on. You have to problem solve, troubleshoot, because I even remember last year he had so many lows, but then came back from it and was flying and moving so well. So it's, in the moment, it could even seem impossible, but there's hopefully some hope out there. It sounds like you guys are doing everything you can in the moment.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, just and keep the spirits up, and because the person, he's the one taking all the brunt of everything, and it can be very overwhelming. So we try to keep him in touch with what's the reality that's definitely not over.
Let's see. So I'm assuming that the sunburn may have contributed to some of that temperature regulation issue. Do you think Mike's going to go into this next section with some extra coverage or do anything different to help alleviate some of that?
Yeah, we're get some sunscreen on him, obviously, arm coverage. He has been wearing the hoodie, but sometimes, it just all depends on how hot it is too. It's one of those things in the hat. So we're just going to try to get, obviously adjust to that, make sure he's covered up, and so it doesn't get any worse, and then, go from there.
Do you know how long this next section is going to be for Mike until he sees you next on Four Peaks?
What is like 18, I think.
Okay.
About 18, and then the next is like just over 20. But it's all down. Like the next one, we can get him up there. I mean, it's a hike. Hopefully that hike flushes his legs. It'll give him, yes, it's going to be a little bit in the exposed sun because he is going up at a southern, eastern slope up over the Four Peaks, and you got the sun exposure right there. So that is a concern. But on the way down, there was a lot of fire road on the other side. And so hopefully that fire road and that descent, he can make up some time. We know he'll be probably pulling in to Sunflower in the dark, which is great because he can go to sleep early and sleep until his body wakes up. And then he'll probably get a middle of the night towards the early morning start before the sun comes up from Sunflower and heading up to PV.
For sure. Yeah, I know the Grapevine Trail, which connects, basically it's the next trail that he's going to be climbing up into Four Peaks. A bit of a grind, but then once you top out there, like you said, a lot of smooth forest road. It's not as jagged as the Superstition, so he's not going to be having as much up and downs. So that's good to hear that, and especially that you guys are going to meet him up there. I think it's probably a crucial spot to meet him up there, especially if you're trying to get him caught up on some sleep.
Oh yeah. And we did talk to a through hiker, and this is kind of a carrot for us. We talked to a through hiker. She, reiterated how awful the Superstitions were. She just got done. We saw her at Picket Post, and she was like, that was just stupid. And, we knew what we were getting into with the Superstitions. But I asked her about the Matzels and how overgrown it was, because that's what the issue was for Mike last year, was the overgrowth.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, I didn't even notice it being overgrown.
Wow.
It was actually a great trail. I was just taken back by the views. And so for a through hiker not to vent about that, only vent about Superstition, so it gives us hope that there might be some relief coming towards the Matzels rather than an awful section. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that our intel is a little bit accurate.
It's funny for me, one of the worst sections was actually Four Peaks this was a long time ago now, like 15 years ago when I did the trail, but there was like 10-year-old trees that were just growing through the trail. And it was kind of like you were talking about fighting back the vegetation last year up Mount Lemmon. It was the same thing. I was like looking up who the trail steward was and about to send some like hate emails because it was so insane. I'm like, how is this even, are you even going out there? So, yeah. But it sounds like it's improved significantly since then.
And with just the amount of, or the lack, the amount of traffic and the minimal amounts of rain from this past summer, it's probably going to be like a completely different trail than what he went on last year, I would assume.
Yeah, it feels like a highway this year. Like we're every stop we're at, there's like 3, 2, 3, 4 through hikers coming through the stop. That's not even in a center section. I can only imagine. I mean, I haven't talked to Mike about if he's been counting or even but there seems to be a lot of thru hikers this October.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it almost seems like there's been a swing to more people doing it in the fall than the spring, when traditionally the spring has kind of been the hot season to do it.
Maybe we're starting a trend here.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we're onto something.
How have the do you know how the water resupplies have been out there? Have they been pretty reliable for you?
Some of the springs have. We've talked to some. Each time I run into a thru hiker, I ask them about water sources, and they'll talk about how they're there, but it's like, half mile off trail, like those kind of scenarios.
Yep.
And I know that's not in Mike's, time frame, and they
sure,
don't have
sure.
the luxury of being loaded up every cruise spot. So
right.
That half mile is no big deal to a thru hiker, but on trail, they're really only if it's a running spring has been good. The other ones, it was a dry year.
Yeah, for sure. Has there been any questionable cattle tanks that Mike has had to pull from? Do you know?
I don't know. Hey, Mike, have you pulled from any questionable cattle tanks with your filter? No, he hasn't had.
Good deal.
He says they're all dry that he's seen.
Wow.
On trail, like right on trail.
We
That's
haven't had much
surprising.
rain at all. I mean,
No, yeah,
I can't even. There was maybe like one storm recently in the last few months.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I thought my year was a dry year, but we definitely had like a surplus of cattle tanks. They weren't ideal, but it was an option. So it sounds like Mike is a bit more limited on some of the water resupplies than in a traditional year.
He's been getting a lot more wildlife this year, though.
Oh, we did see on his Strava that he had a mountain lion encounter.
He's had two. So
Wow.
far. So he's had one overhead on some, perched up overhead on some rocks, kind of looking down on him. He says that it didn't really scare him too much. That one didn't get him worked up. But last night he had a young, not baby, but a younger mountain lion up in a tree. And actually, we had two guys hike back into him to bring him some more supplies just in case. The superstitions took an extra toll on him, and so all four of them together, and that mountain lion had all four of their heart rates elevated. Because anytime you see a young one, where's mama, and is mama going to be pissed? So that one was quite exciting, I guess, for them.
Wow. So I mean, at that point, definitely not hallucination if four people saw it.
Yeah, four confirmations of the hallucination.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, in the chat, Jason just said, for every 2 mountain lions you see, there are probably a dozen you don't.
Yep.
I've personally never seen a mountain lion out there, so it's pretty wild that he's already seen 2, and he's not even at the halfway point yet. We do have Jeff Garmeyer waiting to chime in, so we're going to send it over to him and get some of his input on what this section was like for him real fast. So let's see. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. It's always cool to hear the recap of what happens every 24 hours when we tune back in here. And just hearing about some of the swelling and stuff, I've had similar stuff, and it sounds like it's an imbalance and probably just a little bit of that dehydration that he alluded to as well. It's when lack of salt or salt combined with water is really when that stuff swells up, and that's when you notice mechanical things too. So hopefully with the swelling going back down, he should be able to sink back into it and get on top of the water, because as you know, Bryce, it's so easy if you get a little bit behind. You have like 10 miles ahead of you and you're rationing water and you go deeper and deeper in the hole. And me and Mike talked at Cocodona about how we're from the north where there's not so much issue with this heat and stuff. So I'm sure his body's just freaking out, acclimatizing to this terrain, moving through it as well. It's something you can't really prepare for. And so it's just staying on top of the water and salt combo. And it's a lot trickier than you think, especially when you're riding on the edge there.
Have you, Jeff, had a moment out there on one of these thru hikes that you can maybe elaborate on, where you've had maybe a similar issue that you've worked through it and come back? Like, is this workable for him right now?
Yeah, actually on the Arizona Trail, FKT, right around Pine, so not too far from here. These sections really stacked up and weighed on me as well. So it was that was my worst day. It was a big battle of trying to just, make myself get down a liter every, I don't know, 40, 45 minutes or so and just get back on top of water because your energy leaves, your legs swell, and then that's when it gets in your head. That's the biggest thing. You can come back from any of these things physically. It's just that mental side that's really hard. And so I had foot issues. I super glued this cut in my foot. I super glued that closed and really had to just accept that I'd given myself the ability to have one bad day during the record and I'd burned it. So I had to get back ready for the next day and put together a string of good days after that. So it really is the mental side and maintaining that positivity because these things are so long. You go through so many peaks and valleys along the way, figuratively and literally out there.
Jeff, could you touch on the sections that Mike just went through and what he has coming up? So he just went through Superstitions and he's about to go up into the Four Peaks Wilderness right now. How was this section for you when you came through it?
Yeah, Superstitions, they're really tough and they beat you up. You're kind of out there for a long time as well. And even that descent to Roosevelt, once you get through that tough section, it's what runners certainly would call technical terrain downhill. There's these rocks, kind of like I like to call them turtle rocks, the size of turtle shells. So you're picking every footstep too. So you're mentally alert. You're not just letting go and running quick downhill. So even the reprieve of seeing a downhill can kind of be ruined by having to pay such close attention and your pace not matching up with where you think. So it can be a bit of a low following that where you think you're going to have covered the ground a little bit quicker. And then this upcoming section, hopefully you can get out there before the sun beats down too hard. But Four Peaks is fairly exposed. There's lots of sun out there and stuff too. So I remember I was going through water a lot quicker than I expected, even though it was fairly early morning. And then the Matazols, I texted Ben that this section here is the crux. So if he can come through it just mentally positive, then he's really got a good chance because the trails just become so much less technical after this too.
Yeah, that's a great point. We just saw on screen there was a comment. We got Chad out there, boots on the ground in the North Rim. He says it's 25 degrees. So if he can get, like you said, he's still kind of got some warmer weather before he gets above the rim, but then it should cool off significantly for him. So,
yeah, I mean,
but yeah, that's encouraging to hear. I mean, that he can hopefully get through these next 3 days.
Yeah, I know. I think one of the things that you're especially good at, Jeff, is troubleshooting. And you mentioned like super gluing the bottom of you said you super glued a cut at the bottom of your feet. The way I understand it is you basically like coated the bottom of your feet in super glue as it was basically disintegrating.
It was a big cut.
And so and like you said, I mean, this is the point where he's in the crux of the middle of the course and troubleshooting is just going to be name of the game.
Yeah, I think their biggest challenge is going to be getting on the right side of hydrating and getting that balance of salt and hydration back because even these 20-mile sections, they're pretty brutal and you're out there a long time. And I think the goal today should be really not to ever have to ration water. It should be getting in the correct amount because a couple days stacked like this, it just gets harder and harder to come back from.
Yeah, you kind of dig a deeper and deeper hole. It seems like he's been on a tough trajectory of having to go through each night a little bit further into the night where he's trying to maybe get ahead, but then can't quite get there. It's like the terrain's a little tougher than he thought, or it's a little hotter than he thought. And yeah, it's like he was out, I think, till like 3 a.m, then 4 a.m, then almost 6 a.m. How does that take a toll on someone being out there, like having to go through the night?
Yeah, it's really hard because these FKTs are made up of these micro goals where you want to get to a certain spot at a certain time or get a certain number of miles each day. And when you're continually coming up just short or just behind, that's when that mental side kicks in. And while Mike's, I'm sure, been through swollen knees, feet, sunburn, all this stuff before, when that's associated with not quite hitting your micro goals, it gets really hard to mentally stay positive. And still at this point in the FKT, being like, your goal is always to give yourself a chance at the end of these, and he's right there and right on pace to do that. So that really needs to be the focus rather than dissecting and being hard on yourself. Because I actually talked to Mike Wardian before I did the AZT, and he said that the biggest advice he would give is like, let yesterday go and just focus on the current day. Because once you end that current day, then you can't change anything about it. You just got to come back and do whatever you can the next day.
That's a great mindset to have.
Looks like we do have some action going on in the trailer, so we're gonna shift it back to Ben here. But Jeff, stay on. Your mic's gonna be live, so if you have any questions or want to chime in at all, please do so.
Cool.
I figured I'd just give you guys a little view.
Thanks, Ben.
Of the, you guys can see.
The Normatec boots next to the food.
Oh, what kind of food is he asleep right now?
He has
okay.
his clothes.
What kind of food does he have stacked up there?
He's doing eggs and the venison sausage this morning.
The famous venison sausage.
Has that remained a staple for the last couple days?
He can't get enough of that. He can't get enough of that, and he can't get enough of the pancakes. We're just kind of giving him a little bit of a break. We got him some chicken wings yesterday. He took chicken wings from a barbecue place out of Superior. Amazing chicken wings. Pulled pork a little bit, not too much. He didn't eat too much of that, but I think that heat exhaustion was just hitting him hard. But he down those chicken wings and stuff like that.
How Ben, how was your experience getting up to Rogers Trough? I know that was probably an adventure in its own.
Oh yeah, it's Rogers Trough is so. Let me just give you some context. It's not a big deal for me. I grew up in Reno. I grew up off-roading, the Rubicon, Fordyce. We had rock crawlers. We did, that was my world, even before ultra running. So Rogers Trough is actually a pretty walk in the park.
Sure.
Compared to that stuff. But for some of the crew members that are from New Jersey, and a little bit of a different set of terrain and set of a route, I guess you could say. But yeah, we actually all loaded up. I don't know if you'll see in one of the videos that we're all in the truck playing some Christmas music.
Yeah.
So, November 1st, that's my thing. I was like, November 1st, Christmas music comes on. I'm a happy, joyful thing. And we just kind of just all drove up there together to intercept him up at Rogers Trough. It's about a 15-mile dirt road.
Yep.
Once you get onto the main dirt road, you're probably averaging, maybe 10 miles an hour between the 2 miles an hour rocks and the maybe a 15 mile an hour very short stretch of acceleration and back down to the rocks again.
Yep.
A lot of riverbeds.
Yeah, not the smoothest road. Glad you guys all made it out there all right. We did have a question in the chat here from Texas Country Living. How is Mike feeling now, his psyche and the challenges after the past day/night?
Just from a transparent aspect, you want to say, oh yeah, he's doing great, everything's good, kind of a thing, but no, it's taken a toll. He I remember in the preview show when he came in, when he was talking about Cocodona, or he's talking about in Arizona, driving in and seeing the superstitions out there, and it got a little PTSD, heart racing. I think getting the superstitions out of the way is alleviating, but he does have the two other wildernesses in front of me. I think once he gets those two out, that mental boost of being on that plateau, he'll be a new person. Another thing, that really I saw a light in his eyes yesterday is we kind of so his wife and kids aren't out here, and how much he's done everything with his wife and kids. This is the first this is the first like big event that he hasn't had them with him, and it's kind of been a little bit of a heavy heart on him, especially with Halloween and stuff. Well, way before he even left for the AZT, we already developed a plan, and his family's flying out this Saturday, and so they had the tickets and everything, and we kept it a secret from him. Well, with that low yesterday, I had to pull out the card of, well, you can't, you got to keep going till Saturday for sure, because your kids are going to be here, so, and your wife and everything. And so we, I revealed that, and it was like a new McKnight in an instant. So, just sorry, I get a little emotional.
Yeah.
Just the love that he has for his kids and everything really drove forward.
That's a huge carrot for him, I'm sure, to have that to look forward to. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were saying, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's a huge part of FKTs is you have to have those like positive things in your back pocket. I like to call them your toolkit, and it's so cool that he's got the crew had this one in their toolkit, because it's going to be a huge boost. And sometimes it can just be a certain snack or something, but this really trumps any that I've ever had in my toolkit. So I think this is a huge breaking point. And even just 6 days in, this is right when you're starting to be in that immersive experience of an FKT. So it's going to be really cool now that he's gotten this rhythm, and day after day too. It's really going to be like he's accepting that this is his life day after day, and the rhythm is really probably going to start popping in here too, right as he's getting to that terrain conducive to some really big miles.
Yeah, I love the term toolkit, because it's just so accurate. I mean, even being out there a little bit, a few days out of cell service, and then you get to call your family and talk to somebody. It reminds me of Eric Senseman in the Cocodona documentary, where he's talking about how it feels like he's just been in here for years, like he doesn't know what's going on in the outside world. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Toolkit seems very accurate. I like that term, Jeff. So Ben, the plan today is to, once he gets up, eat, ice, mobility, and then out the door.
Yeah. So he's basically getting the boots back on. I had him in just earlier. Had him in the hip compressions, and then now I got him back in the boots, because even with the hip compressions, it swelled that knee just a tad. We noticed, and so we got him back in the compressions. We'll keep him in there for until he's about ready to go, and then we're gonna get some sandwich bags of ice and just wrap his knee for a good 15 minutes of the last about 15 minutes, and then he'll get up and we'll lay down like a blanket outside we're on a parking lot, an asphalt parking lot, and so we'll have him do some glute bridges, some mobility stretches, some psoas stretching and stuff like that, and then have them kind of like walk around and see how that quad feels, if that quad's still clicking or if it's still hurting. If I need to, get in there with my elbow and massage into his quad and into his hamstring and glute, we'll do that as well. Just try to do some myofascial release, and then send him on his way, and cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Do you guys have a target time at all, or are you just kind of taking it as it comes this morning?
At this point, we just have target locations.
For starting, kind of like to get out the van today.
Well, he was supposed to sleep until 11 o'clock, and he's obviously awake, so that's not a good thing. I thought I'd be doing this out in the pavilion outside with the lake in the background, but so I'm not his comfort and we don't have an ETA. I would like to. It would be great to have him out by. I'd think he'd be out by noon, by 11, between 11 and noon for sure. Obviously, the heat of the day is not ideal, but he's going to face that anyways. It's just getting that knee to subside. If we can get that swelling to go down as much as possible before sending him out, the movement will help flush the rest, and then it'll give him a better shot at being successful. I mean, cross your fingers. This is a kind of a deciding day, you know, with that knee issue. You know, we don't exactly know. I mean,
Yeah.
worst case, I don't know if his knee is out. Is that the clicking? You know, sometimes you can just hit one of those like turtle head. You know, we call them baby heads, but
Yeah.
you call them little turtles. Those rocks, and all you have to do is just do something, and all of a sudden your joint comes just kind of slightly out of place. But when you're doing 40 miles a day to 60 miles a day, and if your joint is just a tad out of place, it's gonna cause some irritation. So we're hoping that's not the case. It's just the swelling.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't really, for this section, in my opinion, just look at the mileage as far as like the effort that you're going to have to put in to get through it. So Arizona Trail. So Mike's last section from Picket Post to where you are now was a little over 47.5 miles, and 10,000 feet of climbing. But even that is just not taking into account the technicality. And in my opinion, it is the most technical part of the trail.
I mean, you think about it like a Wasatch or some of the bigger, like, mountain races like that, and it's 20,000 feet of climbing in 100 miles. So it's kind of like, you're doing that kind of same type of vert and that same, and in worse terrain.
Much worse.
Way worse.
Right.
And with a few hundred miles on your legs.
Yeah.
Right before that.
It's
not
almost
tapered and fresh and ready to go.
Already have coming from Mexico. It's hard to, I think, relay to people watching or to people who haven't been in the superstitions just how technical it is out there. Like, not very runnable. Really, like, mentally difficult getting through that section for sure.
Yeah, it's like telling somebody from the PNW about rocks. The whole AZT is like technical. It's just like you hit a smooth section, you're like, oh, that was smooth, and you get somebody from some nice trails areas, and they're like, holy cow, that was awful, and you're like,
right. It's like a big rock garden with a couple smooth spots in between.
That's exactly, with a lot of thorn bushes from every direction lining the trail.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next, like you said, 2 wilderness areas. My opinion, slightly less difficult if you're accounting for less overgrowth this year. But my opinion, I think it's probably the most beautiful, maybe 200 miles of the entire trail. Like the sun sets from up top Mazatals, it sets to the east, and there's Horseshoe Lake underneath the horizon, and it's really spectacular. So if you can kind of like grit your teeth through some of that pain, it's very rewarding just being up there.
Yeah, you don't want to trip. You're
Right.
usually looking 6 feet ahead
Right.
of you the whole time, but you gotta like take a moment to look to the sides every once in a while to feel that gratitude of how small we are on this amazing earth, and how big it is and how wonderful it is, and how lucky we are to even get to these extreme locations.
Yep.
I mean, you look at what Mike's doing, and I guarantee you there's hundreds of thousands of individuals that are limited on capability physically that would just give anything to experience what he's experiencing.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we're going to throw it to some of the media that we have. We'll check out some of the videos from yesterday and do a little recap that way, and we'll be back with you in a bit. So first, we're going to check out the Instagram of Mike McKnight. Recap show shout out. Happy Toes. Have you tried Happy Toes, Jamil?
I haven't.
I
have some, but I haven't used it.
Tried
I
it.
should have used it at Javelina. Should have used it at Javelina, probably.
Tried it at Mogollon for the first time, and
Yeah?
they put so much on my feet, and I was just like, "Is this too much?" And everybody's just like, "Shut up."
Did it work?
It worked amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Coming up on the halfway point. Do you remember, Jamil, when you went through the trail? Was there any marker for the halfway point? Did you? Because when I went through, it's in the Mazatals. It's just on the other side of Sunflower.
I think I remember seeing, I don't know if there was a true halfway point, but I remember
Yeah.
seeing a sign that was like pretty close to the 400-mile mark in
Cool.
each direction.
Yeah. And when I went through, and if it's still there was rocks. Somebody set out
Really?
400 in rocks on the side of the trail.
There's a sign, if you guys can hear me. There's a sign right at the Peevely intersection.
Yep. Mount
Okay.
Peely.
Mount Peely
Yeah.
Mount
intersection.
Peely.
There's a big sign.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll throw up a picture of me and Mike there last
Oh,
year.
yeah. Right on.
So,
That'd be awesome.
It's just some of our content
A
yesterday.
little follow cam.
I think we looked at that yesterday already.
Oh, yeah. Got the Joe Rogan podcast going in the dark.
Oh,
Keep
right
things
on.
rolling.
This
is the-
was yesterday.
This is his other Cocodona Sun hoodie. I think he's been cycling through.
Yep.
Oh, the CBD balm. Just circling back to his cause, Rod's Heroes. There is a link in the description if you want to check that out and donate.
Mike Wainwright is his photographer out there. Definitely go follow him. Check out some of his content. We've been seeing a little bit ourselves.
So this is on the way up to Rogers Trough. Got some memes. I believe this is Mike heading up to Montana Mountain. So heading into the Superstition Wilderness here.
Someone giving an update.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not the only ones keeping tabs on Mike.
Oh my gosh.
Is
Sausages.
an AI image generator? That's great.
Oh man.
And let's see.
Have anything new on our photo album?
Looks
Oh,
like
yeah.
it. Yeah. So
Starting with him eating there. We already down. We already saw those.
Yep.
Yeah, that one. It's maybe one of those pancakes they were cooking up yesterday.
Yep, I think I see a melted keto brick in there.
And there it is. The start of the Superstitions probably, or could, yeah.
And
Would've
this is one of the higher areas in the Superstitions. So most of the Superstitions does look like that low desert that we showed on the approach earlier. But once you're past Rogers Trough and near Revis Ranch, they're pine trees.
Yeah.
My brothers have actually seen a small black bear there in the wintertime.
Yeah.
It's higher.
It tops out, I think, around 5,000 feet. So it's not crazy high. It's not Flagstaff level high, but yeah, not as high as Four Peaks.
And so this must be Rogers Trough.
Yeah, this is when he was having the temperature regulation issues. Even though he was in this sleeping bag and hoodie, he was still shivering. Kind of just lost a bit of control there yesterday. And here's some overnight video.
Got some tunes going. Just trying to keep things lively out there.
All right. And is that it?
That is it. Oh, nope, there is more.
There's a couple more here.
Oh, this must be the exit.
This must be the end of the wilderness. You can see the relief on Mike's face. Amazing. And it looks like we had maybe one or two more videos here. This is probably that exit of the Superstitions there, or somewhere in it. That looks familiar, most definitely. These guys are getting miles done through the night. Looks like he has quite the team with him. There's probably, three of them plus Mike in this image.
I mean, that's
certainly not lonely miles out there.
Yeah, and that's good. And I mean, that's
really good.
You might as well take advantage of it if you have the opportunity.
These guys are probably having some fun. The team, maybe not Mike, not so much fun at the moment, but certainly memorable, I'm sure.
And it does. I mean, I'm sure they are in there at this point, but it does look there is some overgrowth.
Yeah, I mean, the grasses are going to be grown up in the fall for sure. I think it started over.
Oh, you can see him holding his side there. Looks like he's maybe massaging it a little bit.
Yeah, you can see he's got his left leg is taped up a bit. Well, he was saying he is having that click in the knee, so this is probably what it was looking like for 3 extra hours on that section, unfortunately.
You almost wonder if he could get find a physical therapist who's also a good trail runner, and they might be able to do a massage on the move,
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has someone on his team like that. I know Courtney did when she was on the Colorado Trail.
Oh.
It didn't help her in the end.
And let's just take a look on Strava just at the recap from yesterday. So the elevation profile is pretty telling here. So here, starting at Picket Post, and then this is that long climb going all the way up to Montana Peak here, and then it dips down into Rogers Trough, and then it is just technical. A lot of these are ridge lines, so pretty exposed, lots of wind, is from what I remember going through this section. And then the massive drop, and like Jeff mentioned, not smooth getting down in here. So you're still working for these miles, even though it is a downhill, and then they're ending at Roosevelt Lake. So let's see. We should bring it back to Ben.
Yeah, close it out.
Howdy.
Ben, we're back with you if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Nice. Cool. Well, I think we're going to kind of wrap up the show for today. Any other updates before you guys get back to it and mend McKnight?
The crew's agenda is to get Mike out the door. Then we're going to do a group kettlebell circuit training workout here in the parking lot and take a swim in Roosevelt, more like a bath in Roosevelt. Try to get this stank subsided, and then go meet him up top. So, everybody, I'm a big believer in obviously a higher power. And if you believe in the universe, wherever you stand, just kind of keep Mike in your thoughts and prayers. I think good positive energy sending his way is a real thing, and help it carry him the second half of this epic run.
We do have just a couple questions, Ben, if you have a moment in the chat.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm all yours.
So a lot of love for both you and Mike out there. From Austin, great work, Mike. How are the Speedland shoes holding up?
The Speedland shoes are holding up good. We've had some we're let me say this, Mike's new to the Speedland shoes a little bit. I guess you can say he just barely came over. He was loving. I mean, they're super amazing. I'll just tell you that. His arch is a little bit different in there, and so we're actually haven't really talked about it, but we're mitigating some arch issues because he has a higher arch, and it's just naturally has you know how shoes are constructed to hit the masses. So it's, at that point, then you have to kind of slightly alter things, whether, with an insole that will help support an arch. And once he's never passed 25 to 30 miles in them in a training run. So once he got up into the hundreds of miles, he started noticing a little bit of a arch pain from a fallen arch in there. So we're actually, a big shout out to Speedland. Let me just tell you, let me just explain this to everybody in simple terms. We're over here as a crew just trying to adjust to that kind of a situation. So we actually hit up a fleet feet out of Tucson, got a couple different arch supports for him to try in there to help alleviate that without changing any of the technology within the shoe, because the shoe has some pretty vast technology within it that makes it unique for the shoe. We got on the phone with Speedland. Speedland went out and has custom made a few different arch supports just for Mike. I'm talking about like Frankensteining some insoles together. Maybe we could have some pictures on the next show tomorrow or something like that. But putting these in, I'm just talking about customer service. Do you think you could ever call up Solomon and have them Frankenstein some insoles together just to adjust?
It's a custom speed hack.
Or Ultra or any of the big companies, and when you call them, they pick up the phone, and we sat there and talked to them what we were doing, how we were doing it, and they went to work and they overnighted them. And we actually just got these custom insoles yesterday, so he's going to be trying them out this morning, so we'll see how it goes. But a huge shout out to a company that gets involved with the community, on a whole nother level, not even to the community, I'd say as an athlete, it's pretty amazing. And so I just want to give them a huge plug on that. I'm big about supporting companies that support the community on a different level, not just by profit margins, but by individuals and helping individuals succeed at what they do.
That's really great to hear. That's awesome. Those guys, I was tuning into their Speed Hack YouTube channel before they were able to launch Speedland, and it was really interesting stuff. Those guys are the ultimate shoe hackers, and it sounds like they were able to whip something together, which is really, really cool to hear.
Can't say I've ever heard of a shoe company doing that. Big shout out to Speedland. Ben, another question. Have there been any more rattlesnake sightings? I know you mentioned he saw the 2 last time we chatted about this.
No, they're all, I think the cooler temperature has them at bay a little bit, and obviously they're not going to be out at night, Oh, I wouldn't say that. I had most of mine at night last year. So, but no more rattlesnakes, just cougars. You traded one predator or like feared reptile for a feared animal. I'm sure he's going to have some bears up north. You get the whole variety of them.
There may be a new nickname for you in the chat, Ben. You have been christened Bandolph, the Breakfast Wizard.
I like Ultra Wizard. I like Ultra.
Love it. Cool. That about wraps it up. Outside of a lot of support for you guys in the chat, a lot of love. So
we appreciate it.
Jeff, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think anyone watching, the thing I want to throw out there is just coming from the thru hiking world, when there's an ailment or an injury or something bothering you, it can just magically go away. It's one of the stranger things that exists out there, and especially the first 2 miles after getting up suck, but then somehow you're just a whole new person. So there's a lot of hope, and I think he's really going to experience that and feel like a thru hiker when somehow just in the middle of the day his body's feeling good again.
That resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, me too.
You just got to work through it. You keep going and it goes away.
Usually,
a lot of times.
Usually, yeah.
Not every time. Okay, if you have broken bones, maybe stop. Stress fractures, but Josh Perry, I don't think it stopped him. So
you just keep that hope, and then hopefully it goes away.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Thank you to Ben and Jeff for your time. My co-host Bryce. Best of luck to Mike today. We'll be watching for sure. Be sure to subscribe to the Mountain Outpost YouTube channel. We'll be back live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to check on Mike's progress, hopefully coming to you live from Mount Pelee Trailhead, some flowers somewhere in there. So as he tackles Four Peaks today.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ben.